Could you explain your role in the Kansas City, Missouri School District during the years 1971 to 1997?
Yes, I believe I was a freshman at Westport High School. 1975, I graduated. Really, in my opinion, most of the efforts came from after I graduated because we had neighborhood schools then. The people in your neighborhood was the individuals that you went to school with. The busing didn't start until a little later. Also, I think that was the best way to do it back in the day, being that you went to school with the people that was in your neighborhood, even though it was a hour and a half, well, it was a mile and a half walk, but
Okay.
but we enjoyed the walk
Right.
because we talked to our neighbors before we got to school. I lived right on the crest of Westport. Across
Okay.
the street was Central, which was a totally different animal, in my opinion, than Westport was. They individuals that lived across the street had somewhat of a different opinion than we did. But then again, that was mostly all minority school, where Westport was one of the most integrated school in the Kansas City School District. We thought our class was the most integrated class at Westport. The more time went on, the more integrated Westport became, and by the time I was a senior, it was about a third African American, a third Hispanic, and a third Caucasians at our school, and then other minorities was in between.
Mm-hmm.
But those were the three largest minorities. Busing started, and the districts changed. And again, in my opinion, and in looking back, I believe that the attempt to integrate was really what somewhat destroyed what we had as a district. And when that started, white flight began, in my opinion, where everybody moved south to get out of the district because they was being forced to do something that they did not want to do. Well, again, being that I grew up in a neighborhood that was mostly integrated, went to a mostly integrated school, as a student, none of that really bothered me. I didn't even get into or consider race until a couple of years earlier when Martin Luther King was killed, and they let school out half a day because Central was rioting and told us to run home. And I started running home, and in the middle of that I said, hold up, I'm black too. So I started walking, and a mob walked right by me. But that was my first introduction to racism. And as I said, as I was kind of sheltered by being at Westport, which was an integrated school, already, and hearing about what went on, and in looking at the district forcing individuals to do things that they did not want to do. I didn't understand all of that. But again, in looking back, I think that's what helped destroy our district. I think that integration, the big picture was a good idea, or it seemed like a good idea on paper, but in reality, trying to force individuals to do things against their will, I have learned if you're going to force me to do something that I don't want to do, even if it's a good thing, I might fight against it because you're forcing me. I think educating individuals on why this would be a good idea, or why it would be nice to know something about this culture, is a good thing, and it's a good thing to be involved, because that's what the world is all about. I mean, we're all mixed up in the world. We may come from little pieces of the world in our neighborhoods, in our cities, in our states, but it's a big world out there, and we need to know these things about other individuals. But I think if there was more of an education put into place instead of the busing, that we would have been much better off. In my opinion, again, coming from a student perspective and hearing bits and pieces of the teachers or of the coaches talking about being forced to do this and forced to do that, it was a lot of attitudes towards the Board of Education, towards authority, which the students hear and pick up, and then we go and spin it a different way. Mm-hmm. But as I grew up and as I left Westport and as I look back and from college, from the college perspective, I could kind of see some of the things or attitudes that was in our coaches that we didn't recognize when we were actually the players at that school. Mm-hmm. One of the things that really kind of burnt me later or got me hyped later is that they when you go to college, there's a certain way of understanding the game of football is what I play. Mm-hmm. But instead of giving us the number sequence where the other individuals that I felt came from other places had, our coaches gave us plays like dive right or dive left. They didn't say 218 or they didn't say 221, which tells us which holes to go through. And later on in life, I asked them, why didn't you do that? Because I wasn't prepared to play football in college. Mm-hmm. And they said, well, we didn't think y'all was bright enough. That was one of the things that the coaches told me. Mm-hmm. And I kind of thought about that. Well, you didn't give us a chance. We might have knew what the number meant if you went and explained it to us, but it wasn't explained. The quickest way for them to get us to understand was just to tell us fullback dive right, dive left. And I thought that left us at a real disadvantage entering college, where it's a whole number system that we wasn't alluded to because of where we grew up at and what they thought about us. And that just kind of go to show you of the progressiveness of the negativeness without even knowing it, or prejudice without even knowing it, that was coming from the teachers to us students. In college, it was a whole different ball game. Mm-hmm. They expected for you to know. If they said, called out a number system, then you had to you were supposed to learn that in high school. And we didn't.
So they expected you to know that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So when you look back, why do you think you were not given that number system? Or why was the number system different?
Well, we didn't have a number system at our school. They didn't think we were bright enough to be able to go through the system. They thought, they meaning the coaches, because
at the cell, at the high school?
No, at Westport.
At Westport.
At Westport. Because I asked them later, why come y'all didn't give us a number system? Because y'all really hurt us going to college. And what the coach told me was, we thought that it was better for you because we didn't think that a lot of you could learn the number system. The immediate attitudes of myself and at our school, meaning Westport, since we were integrated, I mean, we looked at each other as a family, but we could tell when we went to schools that was all minorities or all majorities that there was definitely a difference. Going to a all minority school, we noticed getting our bus rocked, because of the attitude that we had won. We noticed going to a mostly majority school that it was pretty much the same thing, mm-hmm. So because we were mixed, so, and we just kind of took the attitude that so what? You know, we like it the way we are, and this is the way we're going to be. And as of this day, at our reunions, we're still like that. And everybody does come, no matter which race they were, and we still enjoy one another.
So you're saying that when you went to a majority school, for instance, if you went to play a sport, you would get
It was the same thing as the minority school would do because we were all mixed up. You know, we wasn't them.
So the reaction of the others was to rock the bus?
Yes, in the minority, that's what they did. In the majority, we just got called names, you know. So they didn't shake our bus or anything, but they called us names. But it just made us become a tighter group because we felt that we had it going on. You try and pick on us, then we must have something that you don't.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Interesting.
I think coming up through the school system that I was just a regular student like everybody else trying to get through it, but I think that after leaving the school district and after going to a all-majority college and being able to succeed there, and then from there going into the world of equal opportunity, because I always still had that little niche that was at Westport in me, and becoming a EO representative for headquarters United States Air Force Reserve Command and superintendent at that, in charge of 39 Air Force bases and 76,000 troops, and displaying the attitude that came from Westport, that we all was equal. We may be different, look different, we may speak different, but as far as being human, we all was on the same level. That's always kind of the way that I looked at it. And when I went and visited, one thing that always stuck in my head was Blue Eyes, Brown Eyes by Jane Elliott, which was third grade teacher back in '68 that did that study and then redid it in '88 with grown-ups. But those kind of things it's always stuck in my head, and as I went and spoke to thousands and thousands of individuals, I tried to bring that thought to them, that you're only worth, let me see what a good word would be, just to put it this way, you are no better than anybody else. You know, I mean, your shoes may be shinier than mine or whatever, but it doesn't make you any better. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of attitude that I tried to instill in everybody. And coming from my district and then having to be able to touch so many people for so many years, because I was in service 38 years, 8 months and 21 days. So all of that went into that. So I was much able to share with the world what I grew up with than I was when I was actually growing up in it.
So you felt that integrated experience had lots of influence on your later career
Absolutely.
choice?
Absolutely. It did.
Mm-hmm.
As a student, wherever I went or one of our teams went, we knew what we were up against, and we always tried to lead by example. We always tried to show, no matter whether it was a majority group we was participating with or a minority group that we were participating in, that we were all together, we were all one. We had a positive camaraderie, and we wanted them to understand, we wanted them to know that. So I think as a student, we led by example. Mm-hmm. Some of the social outcomes, besides attending functions together and leading by examples, and some of the others that have went out and about, have spoke with them, and their careers have been somewhat like mine, carrying the word, so to speak, that integration is good, putting everybody on the same level, no matter who you are or how much money you might have or not. So I just think it just made our mixed, integrated school just made us that much better folks to go out and do the things that we've done.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like to sound negative, but I think that the forced integration made our city what it is today. And if you look at what it is today, even though that I know it was in good faith that the city leaders at those times did the things that they did, right now we have a lot of schools that are closed. We have a lot of people that have moved away from the district, and to better themselves and others, whereas we could have kept that right here with more education and not so much force put behind it. I think it was a good idea that they wanted to integrate all the schools, but I think the way that it was carried out or went about wasn't as good as the idea was. I feel that the neighborhoods went down. Individual white flight was well on its way. People stopped knowing each other as others moved in and others moved out. One became more of a closed type of environment. Neighbors didn't get out and talk or respond to one another's the way that we once did. When I went out, I mean, we were all just out playing, but we wasn't suspicious of one another. We could leave our doors open. We knew one another all over the block, around the corner. We just knew each other. But as the ones moved out and the others that came in, it just wasn't like that. It was a different mentality. I think educating, starting off in preschool and having a curriculum in which continues to build upon itself. As I said, starting off with preschool and going into elementary and going into junior and then high school and on into college, but it's continuing to build on each other instead of all the separatism. Instead of one group trying to outdo the other, come together, because it's all about the children. And I think that by getting out and creating more educational type programs within the school for the parents, because I don't even know if PTA exists nowadays, but I think the parents having a lot more input or being more involved will lead to a better district. And I think we kind of lost some of that along the way. I think that it's possible. I think that we have individuals out there trying to do their best in improving the district. But again, I think also we need some type of forum where that they can get together with the individuals within the district and see what's on their minds, seeing what's bothering them or what's holding them back, and then trying to build something with them instead of building something for them. Well, again, I think that communication is the first thing, and that's communicating with parents, communicating with their children, and seeing what they feel that they're expiring in and that they're have shortage in, and then continuing to build on that, and not so much looking at other districts and saying, oh, well, this is a #1 district, let's bring that in here, because all the functions or all that's going on in that district we may not have in this district. And you can bring the platform over here, but you can't bring the district over here. So use something to build this district. And I think communicating with the parents, first of all, and is the way to go. So,
Okay, thank you.
you're quite welcome.
Great.